Hijikata-san's death coincided with the end of the war, and the government of Hakuoki began negotiating official terms of surrender with the Empire of Japan. And then...
皆、最後の最後まで勝負を捨てずによく戦ってくれた。だが、これ以上の戦いは無駄に犠牲を増やすだけだ。相談の結果、函館政府は新政府に下ることになった。
Not one person spoke, and a grave mood sat heavily on the shoulders of President Enomoto's audience. The war, which spanned over a year and a half since the Battle of Toba Fushimi, had come to an end. It felt like a lifetime ago since then.
今後のことについてだけど、君たちが攻めを負わされることがないよう、我々ができるだけのことをさせてもらおうと思う。特に新選組の諸君については、生き残った大使のほとんどは幹部じゃない一般の大使だからね。厳しい処分が下ることはまずないはずだ。
Just then, Souma stood up, addressing Motori's point with fervor.
待ってください、大鳥奉行。
The audience uniformly directed their attention towards Souma, who cleared his throat.
俺は新選組局長として新政府軍に下ります。
Everyone froze.
相馬君、いきなり何を言い出すんだ。
局長だった近藤さんが新政府からどんな目に遭わされたか知らねえわけじゃねえだろ。
もちろんよく知っています。ですが、もしここで咎めから逃れるため一般の大使として投降してしまえば、新選組を逆賊とした新政府の考えを肯定してしまうことになります。少なくとも俺は局長や副長の命令に考えなしに従ってきたわけではありません。新選組は今でも武士の道しるべだと固く信じています。ですから君の考えはよく分かったけど、それは雪村君も承知していることなのかい？それは。
Souma's expression turned glum immediately. It was clear that my presence was a point of contention between his duty and his heart.
とりあえず二人で話してから決めたらどうだ。
そうだね。こんな大切なことを相談もなく決めるのは良くないよ。はい、わかりました。
The meeting was disbanded and we all split up. I cleaned myself up and approached Souma in his room. Neither of us seemed keen on initiating the conversation, so we meandered quietly. Eventually, though, Souma looked me in the eye.
雪村先輩、本当にすみません。
I knew how difficult this decision must have been. Contrary to their suggestion, though, there wasn't much for Souma and I to discuss. In fact, I quite admired Souma's dedication to his position and to the men with whom he served.
初めて好きになった女の人なのに、俺はあなたを残していかなくてはなりません。副長からも言われていたのに、あなたを一人にしてしまう。
That's all right. I tried valiantly to hide my tears. Enomoto raised a terrifying point. Soma's position as chief of the Shinsengumi meant putting his life at risk in the same way that Kondo-san had risked his. Even if he were to avoid execution, his punishment would no doubt be severe. Even so, Souma had seemingly identified his purpose, and far be it from me to be an obstacle. I hesitated to tell him as much, knowing that doing so could just alienate us. Any farewell worth its salt breaks the fragile heart. I do have one request, Souma.
なんでしょ
If this was to be our last night together, then I wanted to make it count. Please, let me stay with you tonight. Souma gulped.
う。それはつまり
I stared back at him silently. My solemn gaze was enough for him to understand, and I fiddled with my hands nervously. He lowered his gaze to the floor.
ですが俺はもしかしたらもう二度と
Come back alive. His eyes completed his sentence for him. Souma was so good-hearted. There was a reluctance between us to unlock the part of ourselves that made our love real, as we both knew how painful it'd be if he never returned. But that doesn't matter to me. Please. My mind was made up. It had been ages ago. Souma uncrossed his legs, tapping on his knee anxiously. A realization was coming upon us. It was time to put our doubts aside and give a part of ourselves to each other that could never be returned.
わかりました。
Souma approached me and took my hand. He moved slowly as he escorted me to the foot of his futon, sitting me down slowly.
先輩、目を。
He whispered into my ear, sending a shiver down my back, and I did as he told. There was a small pause, and then it happened. His lips were pressed softly against mine. He nibbled upon my lips slowly, gaining in speed as he ran his hands along the small of my back. It was my first kiss ever, and potentially the last one either of us would ever share together. My euphoria had to contend with my sadness. Against my wishes, tears formed in my eyes. But I had to restrain myself, as crying would only sour this intimate moment. I wish it could have stretched for an eternity, but I did my best to savor it while I had it. His hand traveled from the small of my back to the side of my thigh, grazing it lightly with tender fingers before making its way to my knee. My entire body felt covered in tingles. Suddenly, he backed away to say something.
先輩、泣かないでください。最後の夜なのに、好きな人の泣き顔しか見られないなんて。俺、嫌ですから。
I wiped my tears from under my eyelids gently, nodding without saying a word, but they wouldn't stop. And the more I thought about how much I'd love him, the more it crushed me.
先輩、いえ、 消した方がいいですか？
I shook my head. Don't. I want to remember everything. Your face bathed in the candlelight, the touch of your hands.
わかりました。
Our lips resumed their kiss, eager to reunite. He moved his hands nervously to the top of my blouse, taking his time to undo each of the buttons as he began flicking his tongue against mine. Souma! My heart felt so untied, unfretted from feelings of fear or shame. Our love felt so safe in this room. All I'd wanted was to run my hands over his body. I'd never known how quickly minutes and hours could slip from my fingers until I held Souma inside of them. I began to doze off. A faint breeze grazed my cheeks, and I was slow to open my eyes.
すみません。起こしてしまいましたか。
Souma was resting his head against the windowsill, standing with shirt still left unbuttoned. Oh my god! Hold up. Hold up, we're getting there. Hold on. I know what's gonna happen. Hold on. What were you looking at? Yeah, oh my!
北進の星です。
You can see it from here?
あれですよ。あそこにある明るい星です。
He lifted the sheets off. I lifted the sheets off of myself and gazed towards the air in which Souma had been pointing. I saw it, the North Star. The other stars paled in relation to its luminous glow, and it was fixed in place. For the entirety of his life, Souma had been obsessed with the North Star, attaching to it a personal symbolism. Until he finally found it. How many days of anguish was Souma forced to suffer in search of it? How much growth had he undergone discovering his true purpose? Only I could answer that, aside from him. Nah, Souma. In the same way that you've never forget about the Shinsengumi, whenever I see the North Star, I will think of you. For me, my North Star was Souma. No matter how much time passed between now and the beyond, I could never forget our night together and how the North Star glistened in his loving eyes.
千鶴さん。
That look. That look. His voice quivered melancholically.
変ですね。俺。もしかしたら明日死ぬかもしれないのに。生きてきた中で今が一番幸せです。
I leaned my head against his heartbeat, watching the dazzling patchwork of stars shine above us. The next morning,
さて、そんじゃ行くとするか。銃も刀も使わねえ。交渉って名の戦の始まりだ。
What did we need?
鳥羽伏見の戦が始まった時みたいな無法な処分をされないことを祈るばかりですね。相馬くん、雪村くんとの別れは済んだのかい？
Oh, Otori, you have no idea what the goodbye was. You're never gonna get to know how that goodbye went.
言い足りないことがあるんなら今のうちに言っておいた方がいいよ。はい。
Soma sauntered towards me awkwardly, but we already made our peace with one another, and so we simply looked into each other's eyes, waiting for the other to say something. Eventually,
千鶴さん、行ってきます。
in the time since we first met, he'd grown so much. His stats were replaced by a steely conviction, and I felt confident in his ability to negotiate. But I had to say my piece. I'll wait for you, even if it takes forever. I couldn't hold back my emotions. No one else could take his place, and I saw no future that didn't have him at my side. Souma, fraught with equal parts love and sorrow, bit his lip.
はい。きっと戻ってきます。あなたのそばに。
そんじゃ行くとするか。新選組局長殿。
Upon Enomoto's heed, Souma bowed and walked off. The three of them shrunk into the distance. I burned the image in my eyes. Kondo-san, Hichikata-san, Okita, Saito-san, Heisuke, Harada, and Nagakura, Sanan-san, Yamazaki-san, Inoue-san, Shimada, Nomura. Their legacy now rested with Souma, whom I was sure would make them proud in the afterlife. Kazue Souma, the last chief of the Shinsengumi. Final chapter. After Souma had surrendered to the Empire of Japan as chief of the Shinsengumi, he was later sentenced to transfer over to Hachijojima. Hachijojima, a secluded island reserved for prisoners or political traitors. I, on the other hand, had returned to Edo, studying under Matsumoto Sensei to expand my knowledge of medicine as I awaited his release. I often wondered how he spent each passing day, or if the state of the world had depressed him enough that he had given up on life altogether. Our lack of correspondence only worsened my anxiety, and I would frequently lie awake at night replaying the memory of our last night together. 3 years later, 1872. Ooh, yo, this is a massive, massive time skip. I hustled through Uraga Bay, navigating through the busy crowds to catch sight of the steamboat. Why, Fark? I thinned my eyes and caught sight of a black vessel. Was that him? As I reached the harbor, I watched passengers on board one by one in suspense. The swarms of people crashed like the waves 10 feet from where the boat had anchored. Where was he? Where was my beloved Souma? I was afraid he wouldn't recognize me and would leave disheartened, having thought he missed me. Just then, oh,
そこにいるのって、もしかして千鶴さん。
a familiar voice called out to me. It was unmistakable. No one else could raise goosebumps on my arms like he did. His sweet, dignified voice tugged at my heartstrings. Souma! I spun around, and when we locked eyes, I was overcome with emotion, having thought the moment would never come. My heart leapt from my chest like a bird freed from its cage, and I put my hands to his face. Souma, is it really you? I had to feel the contours of his cheeks to be sure.
はい。お待たせしてしまってすみませんでした。
His demeanor was surprisingly demure, as if years at Hachijoshima had eased his anxious heart. He was far more masculine, chiseled both physically and emotionally from years in prison. Have you gotten taller? Hold on for a second. Her hair is down! Chizuru has her hair down.
そうですか。自分ではよくわからないですけど。
His cheeks blushed beside his soft grin, and he coolly ran his fingers through my strands of hair.
ようやく務めを果たし終えて、これでずっとあなたのそばにいられます。
We had so much to catch up on. But that could wait. And Souma wrapped me in his arms. I rested my head against his chest, taking in his scent without saying a word. Maybe, just maybe, Souma had missed me too.
千鶴さん、今までずっと待っててくれて本当にありがとうございます。これからはもうあなたを一人にはしませんから。
Okay. My North Star was here, shining brightly, guiding us into our future. After years of fighting, we could finally rest and discover the true reaches of our love. I sank into his chest, feeling his heartbeat patter against my face, hoping never to miss it again. God, that was cute. Oh,